Hey everybody, it's Flickcam Gamer. I basically wanted to give an update. Like, I know that it's been a while since I last done the last video. Last time I went over all of the DVDs of the TV shows I got, and today I want to talk about all the movies I have. But before we begin, there was one recent purchase that came in the mail a few weeks ago that I want to show off. So that is Liberty's Kids. This was one of the shows that I watched growing up that was on PBS that I enjoyed watching. Rest in peace, PBS. So I'm hoping to at least getting a chance to sit down to talk about it and at least watch it, even though technically the show is also available on YouTube. But like I said, I am a firm believer of physical media, and that's why I want to do this kind of series. So now, we're going to go over here, and we're going to have to go through this large drawer of DVDs, and hopefully I can try to breeze through this, because there's a lot of stuff in here. So, starting this off, my first DVD, my most recent DVD purchase was Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo. I basically bought this like around the recent time because I was basically almost done watching the original Teen Titans, and I basically wanted to round out the series by watching Trouble in Tokyo, which, as it says on the back of the box, also contained the lost episode that was only like 11 minutes. Alright, so now to kind of go over a couple other ones. So the next one that I have was Naruto, the last movie, as basically it was one of those because I was a fan of Naruto, but I kind of fell out of Shippuden. But then I basically wanted to finish up because I saw one of the things that I wanted for the longest time, which was the Naruhina shipping, which came true. Alright, so then next, and yeah, I also bought this from like FYE, because that was basically the place when I was at college where I bought a lot of my complete series and movies on DVD. Alright, so the next DVD I have on the docket was Big Hero 6, which, to be honest, I find to be a very underrated movie, and even more so, I ended up watching the animated Big Hero 6 series, which I think I only sat through the first season. I've only seen like a handful of episodes of the second season, so I didn't really have much to say on that front. Alright, so next we have is Titanic, and as you can see, this is the 10th anniversary edition, and honestly, I don't really watch the movie that much. This is more like my mom or my sister's movie that they watch. It's not really for me, so I understand like it has its fans, but it's not really like my cup of tea. Alright, next, another one of those movies I grew up Racing Stripes, because I basically was like a huge fan of like zebras. And I originally had this movie in my possession, but then I think I lost the disc and the original case, so I basically just decided to, like, buy it again. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I haven't seen it in a long time. I heard it's not very good, but I still like it. Alright, next up, King Arthur. This is another movie that was more like my sister's, and I have literally not seen this movie, and I really just don't have any comments on it. Alright, another one I have is Madagascar, which honestly was one of my... Well, I didn't see the movie in theaters, but like I really enjoyed seeing it on DVD. And as you can see, it also had the Penguins Christmas caper on here as well. Alright, so next one that I have on the docket is the Kung Fu Panda Secrets of the Furious 5. As you can tell by the casing, it's like not very good. It's like all squished in. Because originally this case was supposed to be for one of like the Thomas and Friends like cases. I think it was like Thomas and Friends Help Out. I think it was like the DVD where it was like Mavis was on the cover, but because I lost the disc, this was kind of an empty case that for the longest time I was using to hold like Super Smash Bros. Brawl. So when I bought this off of eBay for like a very, very cheap price, I think it was like $5 or $6, and it was basically kind of like the case with like the disc kind of wrapped in it. So I basically kind of used this case as kind of like a placeholder. Alright, and then next we have Madagascar Escape to Africa, the Madagascar movie that I did see in theaters, and one that I really enjoyed, and it was one of those movies where the sequel was actually better than the original. Alright, so that's all there is on this side. So now, So a lot of these movies over on this side are kind of like movies that were more towards like my sister and my mom. So this first one, Inuyasha, The Castle Beyond the Looking Glass. This was more like my sister's movie because she was a massive Inuyasha fan. I never really got into the series, and honestly, I kind of don't really have any desire to do so, even though I know one of the characters is English dub is Kirby Morrow, who, may he rest in peace, even though it's been like 5 years. But like, it's not really a series that I personally get into. All right, next we have is Glory. This is a movie I actually didn't know we actually had, and I actually watched this movie as part of like a 7th grade like presentation, because I remember at school, like, we actually had when we were studying like social studies, we were allowed to actually watch the movie. So I definitely like the movie for what it was, and there's really not much to talk about. Okay, I have no idea what this is. You don't get to 5 million friends without making a few enemies. Oh, this is a Social Network. I think this is one of the things I hate about this is that, like, it's not really much to, like, open up. I can't even pull the damn thing out. Like, and I think it's stuck. And I can't do this without having to... What the hell? Okay, so yeah, so while I have a black screen, as I try to open this up. Okay, how the hell did they... Oh. Okay, so that's not how I wanted this to happen, so... Okay, so I basically just ruined this box, so that's my bad. I cannot believe I just did that, but, like, I don't really have any other choice, because there was, like, no way to get this stupid DVD box out, and, like, that is such a pain in the ass to do that. Okay, moving on. So, now to a movie that I actually bought off, which is Suburban Nights, which is basically the second part of the Channel Awesome trilogy, because I was a huge fan of the Nostalgia Critic, and of, like, the 3 Channel Awesome movies, Suburban Nights was, like, my personal favorite, mostly because, like, I found it the funniest. And I know there's, like, a lot of iffy things that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Channel Awesome, but I don't want to, like, delve into that too much. Alright, up next, the Godfather DVD collection. And as you can tell, it is basically a very big collection, but, like, I don't hate The Godfather. Like, I understand, like, The Godfather is a masterpiece. Like, I do like it for what it is, but, like, it's not one of those movies that, like, I'll sit down and watch. And it's one of my mom's favorites, so I won't argue with that. Okay, up next. Eagles, Hell Freezes Over. I have honestly no idea what this is, and I don't really have any comments on this. Alright, next. Moonstruck. This is another one of those movies that I have never seen, so to be perfectly honest, I have really no comments on that movie either. So that's the end of this section. So let's go over to this section in the back. So this here is the Lady and the Tramp Blu-ray, but we don't really have a Blu-ray because it's also a DVD player, and I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but, like, it doesn't really age well, especially when it comes to, like, the Chinese cats that are very, very racist, but nothing else to talk about. Alright, up next, Chicago. This is a movie I've heard of, but I've never really seen. Really, the only thing I know about Chicago is basically only 2 of the songs, which were All That Jazz and Cell Block Tango, and that's about it. I actually never sat down to watch the movie itself. Alright, Finding Nemo. This is one of my personal favorites that I did see in theaters while I was in kindergarten, and it's been a long time since I popped the DVD in, but this was also one of those DVDs that has a lot of these, like, bonus features, which is a benefit to watch. So that's all there is to it. Alright, Beauty and the Beast. This is the special edition version, and I think from what I remembered, I think this also, because it has, like, a lot of, like, I think background stuff to it. Like, I think one of the features is that you get to take a tour through the castle, something like that. I don't know. I think I'll just be able to put it in when I get the chance. All right, next. All right. Elizabeth. This is another one of those movies that my mom probably watches. I have never seen this movie, and I just genuinely don't have any comments on it. Okay. Case closed. Detective Conan, The Time Bomb Skyscraper. Now, even though technically this movie was like more towards my sister, this was actually one of the movies I did actually sit down and watch, and I've only seen it once. But I think the Media Hunter recently did a review on this movie, so I'll probably take a chance to like watch at it. And as far as Case Closed as a series, it was more towards my sister's speed. I think she kind of I think she had the DVDs for like the first 3 seasons, but then they kind of showed up at my dad's house, and I think they're probably still like buried in a bunch of boxes. But I'll just check to see if she's still there, because I think when we came down for Christmas, she probably took those DVDs back home, but I don't really know. Okay, let's see, there's 2 more in here. Okay, WALL-E. Okay, this looks like this was another one of the cases that I kind of like tore up a bit, and I think also the DVD. So this is a weird case because I've never seen like a DVD that's like this, and I think I did a pretty crap job with tearing the box open just because I was trying to get it out like that. So WALL-E is definitely another one of those movies that I definitely liked a lot. So, all right. And then last but not least, Happy Feet. And I think it's one of those where, like, if you move this around, you can see I don't know what you call the material, but they kind of, like, move around, and you can see the picture move, like how I'm doing it right now. So, Happy Feet was one of the movies that I enjoyed as a kid, but I think based on what I've seen and heard, it's one of those movies that hasn't, like, really aged all that well. I think I had, like, another movie I had was, like, March of the Penguins, but, like, I never, like, saw it. So, really not much to talk about as I set myself down and pull this out, because I basically want to make sure I get enough room to actually make sure I keep everything organized, because that's just how I operate. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so now on to this side. This will be the side that I have a lot more to talk about, because these are the movies that I personally bought with my own money and the ones I watch more. All right, so obviously another obvious one I have is The Incredibles, which is a movie that still holds up today, and honestly kind of a movie that has a really disturbingly high body count when you get to the scene, you know what I'm talking about. And this is one of those DVDs where it has like one of those clip things where you can put it on that was kind of secure the case, and honestly I don't really mind it. I had both the widescreen and the full screen. I honestly didn't know which one was better. I think the full screen version is at the Beach House along with Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but I refuse to acknowledge that movie because I hate it with a fiery passion. Okay. Alright, next one I have Bionicle 2 Legends of Matanui. This movie was probably one of my childhood movies that I watched growing up because I was a massive Bionicle fan back in the day. And I kind of wish LEGO would bring this series back, but it's been about a decade, and I haven't seen it in a long time. Alright. Another one I have, 8 Below. I think this was one of those movies that I actually wanted to see because, you know, it had like a bunch of dogs, and I didn't know at the time, but I was a massive dog fan. And I think just because of the fact that 2 of the dogs were named like Shadow and Truman, and I think those 2 names like stood out to me because like obviously I was getting into like Sonic Adventure 2 as well as Sonic Heroes because I was a huge Shadow the Hedgehog fan. And then if you remember the Nicktoons show The X's, and like the son was named Truman, that was probably the main 2 reasons as to why like I got into like those names. And obviously it's been a long time, and also my mom actually called the title 8 Dogs Under. So, yeah, that's a lot to pack in. All right, so up next we have is Anchorman. And this is the unrated, uncut version. And I have seen Anchorman, and it's definitely a very funny movie. And I don't really have much else to say, because that's why I have a lot of this. All right, so this next one, actually I kind of took off of, like, my dad's hands, because it originally belonged to him. But, yeah. I have South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. And I actually did get the chance to watch it. And honestly, I really did enjoy this movie for what it is, and it definitely will get a chuckle out of me, and especially for what it's going to stand for, especially in the time now where we need South Park, and given what's been going on out in the world, I think we kind of need it now more than ever. All right, up next, Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge. Obviously, I've only seen like a clip of it on Instagram, but then I decided to buy the movie itself, and it's definitely serviceable for what it is, and it was probably one of the better Mortal Kombat movies that we got. All right, next up, the very first Michael Bay Transformers movie back in 2007. This was actually a movie I was looking forward to watching because I was so hyped up by the background. And as I said in the last video, because I was a fan of the Transformers Unicron trilogy, I didn't know about most of the characters that were like in the movie. Like the only Transformers I recognized were Optimus, Ironhide, Megatron, Starscream, and that was it. Like there was no Hot Shot, no Landmine, Scattershot, Red Alert, Scat, Demolisher, Cyclonus. There was like nobody from the Transformers I grew up was in this movie. All right, next is the original Kung Fu Panda. This was a movie that I definitely wanted to see, and it gave me a lot more than what I was expecting because I was just basically just a huge DreamWorks fan, and I definitely wanted to see this movie. And as many people pointed out, this series is the definition of don't judge a book by its cover. All right, let me see the last two bits. Okay, so the last two we have Seabiscuit and Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one. These two were kind of more of like my sister's thing. Like she enjoyed these movies more than I have, and I don't really have much to talk about them all that much. So that's pretty much it for this section, and I don't know how much more we can get through this, but you know what? We're making this up as we go. Okay, so as I'm pulling this out, so now we're just going to continue onward with the next set of DVDs. Sorry, I didn't know why I had to. Okay, so next up on the DVD docket, we have Sinbad, Legends of the Seven Seas. I remember watching this movie growing up, and I remember loving it. And it actually wasn't that long ago. I actually sat down to watch it on my DVD player, and I enjoyed the movie for what it is. I definitely had a great time with it. And honestly, I find it to be a very underrated animated movie. So I definitely enjoyed this movie a lot, even some other people doing it. All right. Up next is a film that I really didn't know what to expect. So this is Meet the Feebles, one of Peter Jackson's earliest works. I only knew about this movie because I saw a clip of it on Instagram, and it seemed kind of interesting to me. And when I sat down to watch the movie on YouTube, I thought it was just going to be more like an R-rated movie of the Muppets. That was my thoughts going into the movie, and I got half of that right. It essentially was an R-rated version of the Muppets, and I basically was kind of squinting at it, but by the time the movie was over, I literally said to myself, what kind of fucked up movie is this? And as you can tell, this was one of Peter Jackson's earlier works, and to be honest, I don't know if I'm afraid to watch this movie because I feel like this is kind of like a bootleg case, to be honest, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to like watch this movie. It's like my only thing. Because, like, there's no, like, official DVD release, and this was kind of a movie that's, like, lost to time. So, how the hell I got that in my possession, I will never know. Alright, so up next, the remake of The Karate Kid with, Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. I've honestly only heard about the movie from the Nostalgia Critics, old versus new on The Karate Kid. And this was back before, you know, Cobra Kai was a thing on Netflix. I think I only sat through, like, the first 20 minutes, but I never finished it. Not because, like, I hated it, but because, like, I was trying to do, like, what the Nostalgia Critic did, and I think I tried to make this one of, like, my earliest reviews, but I just think I would never got around to, like, finishing it, but I just don't think it's as bad as a movie as everybody makes it out to be. Alright, so up next, we have the Jump Street collection of both 21 and 22 Jump Street. And obviously, both movies are incredibly funny, but I think this is one of those instances where I personally think that the sequel is funnier than the original, because obviously the thing that really gets me to laugh every time is the scene where Channing Tatum is basically like, it's the Schmidt fuck the captain's daughter. Schmidt fuck the captain's daughter. I'm even cracking up myself as I'm even talking about this like right now. But yeah, both very funny movies. All right, so up next we have one of the first movie collections I have, the All Thumbs collection. So basically, back in the day, Cartoon Network basically released a bunch of thumb parodies of a lot of famous movies. And one of the ones that I was familiar with the most was Thumb Wars, which was basically the thumb parody of Star Wars, which was incredibly funny to watch. And I even got a chance to sit down and watch all of them. I think the only other one that I think I saw was, Franken-Thumb and Bat-Thumb. Franken-Thumb I think was the only other one I saw. So those were the only two I did see, but then I got a chance to watch Thumbtanic, The God Thumb, The Blair Thumb, and Bat Thumb. So like I said, obviously you can tell by the parodies, this is supposed to be a parody of Star Wars, Titanic, The Godfather, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, The Blair Witch Project, and the 1989 Batman series. Batman movie by Tim Burton. So yeah, this was one of those things I actually bought off eBay, and I really have no shame in saying that. Alright, so there's literally oh dear lord, I did not think I had this many movies in here, so let's actually try to get through this and see what else to talk about. So let's get to the next section right here. Alright, so here we have our next section. So up next we have Inside Out. This is one of those movies that I have heard of and I plan to watch, and I know technically it's on Disney Plus, but again, prefer to have physical media. Alright, Kung Fu Panda 2 is the next film, and this movie I basically watched ad nauseum after I saw all the positive reception it got from the nostalgia critics DreamWorks Ueri. And it's obviously the best in the trilogy, and it's a much better movie than The Hangover Part 2. And to be honest, I kind of wish I saw this movie in theaters, despite all my technical troubles with it. Alright, next, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. This movie, I was obsessed with seeing the trailer because I had Pokemon the movie 2000 on VHS, and the trailer of this movie always got me so hyped, but I never really saw Batman Beyond, so I never really got any. But after I saw the movie, I basically then went back and bought the complete series of Batman Beyond, and I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Alright, next, the 2017 My Little Pony movie. As a brony, I was going to buy this movie eventually, sooner or later. And as I said when I did the School Days two-parter premiere, the Season 8 premiere, I thought the movie was good. I know it has its serious problems. And the stupid comic relief, what's-his-face, that I really can't think, Gerbil, Gurk, or whatever the fuck his name is, he could go die in a burning fire, and the Storm King is kind of lame. But other than that, the movie I felt overall did pretty good and did a lot to expand the mythology and world building of Friendship is Magic. And as I said, I am so glad that Season 8 and Season 9 tied the continuity of this movie together. So I'm definitely happy about that. Alright, next I have the 1986 Transformers movie. This was a movie that I heard a lot of good things about over the years, and I definitely wanted to see it for myself. And as I said, I think because I saw this movie first when a lot of the Transformers died outside of Optimus Prime, I thought it was kind of strange. But similar to Batman Beyond, once I saw this actual movie, once I saw it, I actually then went back to watch the Generation 1 series. Alright, so that's going to be something that I'm definitely looking forward to. And I just got to take care of a few things, so I'll be back a sec before I continue. Hey everybody, I literally like Sunday, the day after I did this, for the abrupt ending. There was something that I do on the weekends that I basically meet up with a couple of friends from college to talk on Zoom. So I kind of had to cut the last part short. So this is gonna be another one. I'm gonna have to add the two parts together. All right, so anyways, so continuing off with the rest of my DVD collection, next I have is the Lego Batman movie. And I really enjoyed this movie for what it was, and honestly, it definitely gave me like a lot to enjoy, being that, you know, I do enjoy playing with Legos. And I did kind of see the first Lego movie, but it's neither here or there, but I definitely enjoyed it. All right, next up, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I think really like the only reason why I actually got into this movie, and just basically based off of the Fiery Joker's top 10 music battles video from like, I think 6-7 years ago, and this movie definitely really intrigued me, and I saw all the battles online, and I found myself like cracking up at a lot of the stuff that was in there. So it's definitely one of the better like video game movie adaptations, and I even actually have the actual game itself, and I'll talk about it more when I talk about my Switch collection, but like I want to plow through the rest of the DVDs first. All right. Next we have is Cars. In my personal opinion, one of the most overhated movies ever in existence. This is actually one of the second times where I've actually had to purchase this twice, because the first time I had this movie when I was younger, but then I lost the DVD, and I kind of used the case for like one of the GameCube games, which I had sold when I was in college. So I didn't really like have the DVD itself. So I basically just had to buy like a new copy of the movie. And as you can see, it has the Mater and the Ghostlight special as well. All right. Next movie is Sideways. This is another movie that is not really a movie that I've seen. I'm really only familiar with the clip where Paul Giamatti basically gets mad at Thomas Hayden Church. It's basically the clip that I used in both of my Newbie Dash and non-compete clause reviews, where he's basically like, shut up, shut up, shut up! Jesus Christ, what the hell is wrong with you? Would you please just shut up? Fuck. Like if you remember that scene, I never like saw the full movie aside from like the occasional clips, and as you can see, it's like still in the shrink wrap and it hasn't been opened. All right, and then last but not least, in this section we have Robin Hood Men in Tights. And honestly, obviously it's a Mel Brooks comedy. I definitely enjoyed the movie for what it is, and to be honest, it's one of those movies where it's, as a parody, it's still very funny. And I remember one time in like, I think it was like my sophomore year of high school, like we actually had the opportunity to actually watch like the first half an hour, 40 minutes of the movie, and one of my classmates was like not laughing at it, but to me, like, I found the movie to be pretty hilarious, and yet we were forced to watch Waterboy, and somehow they found it hilarious. But then again, like, comedy is kind of subjective in that stance. Alright, so that is one section down. And holy shit, we have 4 more to go. Like, we have a lot of DVDs in here that's also cluttered in with, like, a lot of controllers. So I'm gonna have to be very delicate. Because, again, I'm, like, trying to be delicate. I know this is not exactly the best way to, like, handle this, but I want to take... Alright, so next we have on the docket, I have the Rocky Horror Movies collections. As you can tell by the title, this is essentially Rocky's 1, 2, 3, and 4, all in, like, one DVD case. And it's essentially, like, they're all kind of separated out into, like, different discs. Okay, not entirely. So, basically, as you can see, I have Rocky... And then this blank disc is actually supposed to be Rocky 3. And then this is basically one of those cases where if you turn the disc the other way, it'll play Rocky 4. Which, honestly, I never even heard of something like that. But there's going to be another case that we're going to get to shortly. All right, so next we have the last movie of the Rocky saga, which, yes, in case anyone is wondering, no, we don't have Rocky 5, but we do have the 6th movie installment, Rocky Balboa, which I, like many people, wondered why wasn't this called Rocky 6, considering that this came out in 2006. And of the original Rocky movies, this is actually the only one I actually remember watching in theaters, because I actually was brought to the movie theater with my mom and my stepdad at the time. And I definitely enjoyed the movie. As somebody who didn't really like see any of the movies, and considering that this movie also kind of only ties in like the first 4 movies, but like skips over 5, I think it's kind of like 5 is kind of being seen as like an afterthought. That's just kind of how I see it. All right, so up next we have is Creed 2. And actually, you know what? Might as well just get it out of the way, because I also have both Creeds 1 and 2. To be honest, I remember like being a junior in high school and being excited for not the picture frame crashing and the DVDs falling over, but I remember being excited for seeing like the trailer of this movie. And like at first I thought it was going to be kind of like a generic like boxing movie at first with like the first Creed. And then when I saw Sylvester Stallone was in there and basically they started talking about Apollo, like that's when I got excited. I think Creed was like one of the first movies in a long time while I was like a junior in high school, because it came out in like 2015, so I was like a junior in high school at the time. I remember being excited to go see the movie, and it was one of like the first movies that I actually wanted to see in theaters in like a very long time, because I'm not really like an outgoing movie person nowadays. And then Creed 2 was the movie that I definitely was something that I felt like I had a feeling they were going to follow up as kind of the conclusion of the, obviously, Creed versus Ivan Drago's story arc. And I definitely enjoyed the movie. I know some people, like, have, you know, some issues with it, but, like, I definitely like this movie a lot. And for those who are wondering, no, I don't really have Creed 3, only because, like, I just find it to be, like, an unnecessary sequel. Alright, next we have is The Dark Knight. This movie really needs no introduction. It's basically kind of a masterpiece, basically. I know some people say it's, like, overrated, but if I'm being honest, Batman Begins is kind of the more overrated movie. And I definitely enjoyed watching this movie as really just, like, a Batman fan, so yeah, so it's definitely a masterpiece. All right, next up we have is Wolf Children. The only reason why I know about this movie was because of Selleck's production in her worst of best movies, I think in 2013, where I became intrigued with this movie just based on how great the animation looked and basically just how perfect it was. And obviously, after watching it, it's definitely one of my all-time favorite movies, so I'm definitely happy to say, and if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend watching it. Alright, next we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Another movie that doesn't really need any much introduction. It's another, basically, masterpiece, and basically it was one of the most highly anticipated movies in a very long time. So it's kind of a miracle that I got this on DVD, but you know what? I have some decent taste. Okay, next, The Poseidon Adventure. This is another one of those movies that I have never seen, and to be honest, I have only seen, like, bits and pieces of it. And to be honest, I can't really comment on it too much because I really don't know what the movie is about. But I just think just based off of just like the cover of the DVD, it kind of terrified me. Alright, next is Full Metal Jacket. This is another movie that doesn't need any like introductions whatsoever. And I've only seen like the clips of like really like the first half of the movie, mostly because of I'm trying to think of the name. Lee Ermey, who played the drill sergeant that was only in like the first minute, who also voiced Wawa in Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex. And as I said, I basically used one of the clips in the Washouts review. I never fully sat through the movie. I've only seen like clips of it, but I hopefully try to find the time to sit down and actually watch it, assuming that the disc is actually in good condition to like actually be watched. It's because it's like, I'm trying to think, because like if you look at like the disc like really closely, like it has like a lot of stuff on it. Like I'm trying to use it as like an example, because I mean it looks fine for what it is. I think it was just like the case kind of like just threw me off a little bit, because like I thought it had like some stains. But yeah, this is another movie that I am going to be looking forward to. Okay. Next movie for the section is Corpse Bride. I am obviously a very huge Tim Burton fan, and Corpse Bride was definitely one of those movies that I remember seeing in theaters with my cousin, and then I just kind of forgot about it for like years until I finally decided to like pick it up. And obviously some people say it's like not one of the greatest films, but like given what it was able to come out, I still like thoroughly enjoy it, and it is a genuine good movie. All right, last but not least, we have probably one of the only horror franchises that you're going to see me play. It is the 4 film favorites of the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. The Wes Craven classic, the original, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. I think it was just because when I saw like the hardcore kids review of A Nightmare on Elm Streets 3, 4, and 5, I ended up becoming like a huge fan of the series, and then also saw his review of Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. But yeah, like it was because of the hardcore kids review that I actually got into the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And to be honest, it's really like the only like slasher, like horror movie slasher series that I actually have. Well, the first half of the movie, because there's supposed to be like another 4 film favorites class that's supposed to have The Dream Child, The Final Nightmare, New Nightmare, and Freddy vs. Jason on that set. I just have like the first 4 films. So that's basically all there is with that part of the collection. And we're not done yet, and I'm hoping I'm having enough storage to make frickin' okay, because I'm like trying to move some stuff around, so okay. Alright, so now let's get the next couple things out. Oh wow, I did not think that this was okay, so alright, just gotta I'm just like reorganizing myself because I've already, well, so yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the bookcase you see for the distractions. Like, I really like to do it this way. Oh my god, okay. I'm just like, all right, there. I'll just, yeah. Okay, moving on. All right, so now next up we have is gonna be all Star Wars related. So this was another one of those series that basically my dad used to own, but I ended up watching the DVDs all the time. So as you can tell, I basically have the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy because, to be perfectly honest, I really had not seen the new Disney trilogy. So Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, I essentially pretend that those movies never existed. But yeah, but essentially I have all of the Star Wars DVDs, including all the prequels. So I have Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which I remember asking for like my birthday once, along with Revenge of the Sith, which I only wanted to get into because of like all the stuff that I saw about. And then we have the original trilogy, so Episode 4, A New Hope, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And there's also supposed to be a bonus materials DVD, which also came in this box set. So obviously that's something super cool to really think about. And it also comes in this nice little case. I'm just trying to like basically organize myself, so excuse like the ceiling because I need to do this with like 2 hands. All right. So now that we got that, So then the last part of this part of the collection we have is these Star Wars Disparities Spaceballs, which my sister introduced me to because she made me watch Little Shop of Horrors, and then she had the DVD to Spaceballs. And then, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to find it for, like, years, and I wanted to watch the movie, and then I just ended up buying it for myself. And it's like, and obviously it's another Mel Brooks comedy that shows that parody doesn't suck as opposed to it does nowadays. Okay, so, alright, so the next set we have is gonna be a kind of a strange set, because I'm really trying to make sure that I do this with two hands. So, okay, so let's put this here. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to have the next. So up next we have is the Simpsons movie, which I remember basically going into theaters and actually enjoying it. And I've only seen, like, a handful of episodes of The Simpsons, but, like, the movie I just wanted to see because I just found the trailer to be, like, really freaking hilarious. And the movie came out in 2007, I think. When was this? 2007? Yeah, 2007. So I think I was in, like, 3rd grade transitioning to 4th grade. So I think this was probably, like, one of the first PG-13 movies that I've seen. And, like, a lot of the jokes just went over my head. Alright, so next we have is Gremlins. This was another one that I basically heard about from watching the Angry Video Game Nerds review, and I definitely enjoyed my time with it. And it's a lot better than I gave it credit for, and obviously this is going to be one of those I'll probably watch during Christmas. Alright, so next we have is another DVD Blu-ray combo of the first Avengers movie. And obviously, because I am more of a DVD watcher than a Blu-ray watcher, and this is another one of those I saw in theaters with my sister and some of her friends, and I basically loved the movie for what it was, so I'll just leave it at that. Alright, next is Shrek 2, one of the comedy classics that essentially was basically kind of the sequel was better than the original. I did see the original movie. It was on, like, VHS, but I think I had it on one of, like, those Blockbuster, tapes. But it was very surreal to have it on DVD because it had, like, the feature of, like, Far, Far Away Idol, which I definitely love to see. So, yeah. So, this is another one of those movies I definitely enjoyed. Alright, so here's the other 4 film favorites that I was talking about earlier that was kind of what I hinted at was like the Rocky stuff. So here we have the 4 film favorites Batman collection, which consisted of the first 4 live-action movies from the 80s and 90s. So, aka Tim Burton's Batman in 1989, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. So basically what I was kind of referring to before is that the way they basically inputted this disc is that they essentially had all the movies on 2 different discs. So, like, I think this disc is supposed to be, like, the first Batman movie. So if you put it in, like, this, you put it in the DVD player this way, it would play Batman. But if you flip the disc to the other side, it'll play Batman Returns. And then the same thing for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. And obviously, well, firstly, rest in peace, Val Kilmer. And yeah, I know the poor reputation of Batman and Robin because I basically did a text review to really all the Batman movies except for the 1989 Batman movie because I didn't really have time to do it and I kind of fell out of it. Alright, next we have is Toy Story 3. Obviously, this is another very good movie, and a very funny story is that, like, we actually went to see the movie in theaters around the time my sister had finished, like, cleaning out her closet, because I think she was, like, a junior in high school at the time, because I was in 10th grade when this movie, not 10th, 6th grade when this movie came out. She was in 11th grade, and we had just finished, like, cleaning all of her stuff out, so it was kind of, like, very surreal to watch this movie after we literally just finished, like, clearing a lot of the stuff out of the stuff that she was growing up. But yeah, like, it's a very enjoyable movie, and to be honest, this should have been the end of the Toy Story franchise instead of trying to beat it into the ground with Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 5. Alright, up next, Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, I did see the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory way before the movie came out, and obviously that freaking tunnel scene still scares me. But I was really excited to see the remake come out, and I know a lot of people really weren't like fond of the movie, but like I definitely liked it for what it was. And over the years, I was kind of like on again and off again, but I honestly appreciated the movie for what it was. And to be honest, I think that the remake was kind of more of a faithful adaptation to the book, whereas like the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory kind of had to take some liberties. Okay, next is kind of a weird one. We have Scooby-Doo Laugh Olympics, the Spooky Games. So basically what it is that it's essentially, it has Scooby-Doo Spooky Games, the TV movie. But the main reason why I wanted this DVD was because I was a huge fan of the Laugh Olympics. And I feel like this is kind of like literally the only DVD release of like the Laugh Olympics. Like, I don't know if there's really any way to like watch it on like streaming services or anything like that. So that's basically all there is to it. Okay, next one, this Thomas and His Friends Help Out. This was not the DVD case that I had, but yeah, I did have like one of these growing up. Well, this case was kind of used as kind of a backup because I don't know if I can like hold it and see very well, but basically this is supposed to be for the 2007 TMNT movie that came out in 2007, and I was a huge fan of the 2003 series, so when the movie came out, I never saw it in theaters, but I really wanted to like watch it, but I ended up losing the DVD case, so I kind of had to use like this Thomas and Friends case as kind of like a cover to kind of keep it safe. All right, and then the last one for this section, we have the Mortal Kombat double feature disc that has both live-action Mortal Kombat movies in the 90s, the first Mortal Kombat movie that came out in 1995, and the shitty sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which really needs no introduction. But just to give my brief thoughts, I think the first movie is a guilty pleasure, and Annihilation sucks. Like, there's really, like, no debate whatsoever on this whatsoever. Like, really, like, I cannot think of one person who liked Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Like, can you, like, name me one person that has, like, unironically enjoyed watching Mortal Kombat Annihilation? Like, you can't. You just can't. Like, I don't know, like, if there's anyone who, like, unironically likes Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I have never met any of those people, so I wouldn't know for a fact. All right, we're almost done. There should be one set of DVDs left, and then that should be it. And then I gotta cobble these two videos together to hopefully make it into one part. That might not seem like the most seamless thing, but I would like to do this for fun. So now let's pull out the last set of DVDs, because there are also some films you wouldn't expect me to have. Okay, so now for the last set of DVDs of movies that we have. So first we have is the live-action Speed Racer movie. I think because, like, I was just a fan of, like, the racing genre, and I think I was also into the Nicktoons cartoon Speed Racer: The Next Generation that came out, like, the year before. Like, I definitely genuinely wanted to see this movie, and this is another one of those movies that I find to be, like, an extremely guilty pleasure. Like, I know it has its problems, but, like, I enjoyed the movie for what it is, and yeah, aside from Speed Racer from The Next Generation, I've never seen the original movie. Alright, so next we have probably one of the more forgotten movies that you probably never heard of, Mr. Popper's Penguins. I think really the only reason why I kind of wanted to see this movie is because I think I was a huge fan of the Penguins of Madagascar, and also because I was a Jim Carrey fan, I thought it was going to be funny. And I think maybe I'll pop this in one day to, like, see if I can be able to, like, watch it, because I thought it was good from when I enjoy it, but we'll see when I... No. Alright, so next we have is the Lego Movie. I did actually come around to go and actually buy the movie on DVD for, as you can see, a relatively cheap price. Obviously, I really enjoyed for what the movie was trying to teach, and I really think it's a good kids movie that I think kids should watch, along with the Lego Batman movie. Alright, next we have is one of the more obscure DVDs I have. One Piece, The Desert Princess, and the Pirates. Which is basically, this DVD is essentially kind of the more abridged version of the Alabasta arc from the show. But at the time, I didn't even know about... I did watch One Piece, but admittedly, I kind of only seen, like, the 4Kids dub, and, like, I thought about it for years, but, like, I never actually got around to watch it. So when I saw this DVD at, like, Stop and Shop in a bargain bin, I figured I might as well sat down and watch it, and I was kind of sheltered watching the 4Kids dub, because when I sat down just to watch this movie, I was pretty much in for, like, a rude awakening, because I did not know a lot of the stuff that was the opposite of what I saw when I watched the 4Kids dub. Even though I didn't actually think I never actually saw them actually get to the Alabasta arc in the 4Kids dub. But obviously nowadays, I am now a huge fan of One Piece, even though I kind of jump from episode to episode. All right, moving on, we have Wayne's World. This is another one of those comedy classics that I recorded on my DVR, and because of the Angry Video Game Nerds review of the games, I definitely wanted to watch this movie, and I definitely found myself laughing at it a lot, so it's definitely a good movie. I just haven't seen the sequel. It's kind of like my only thing. Alright, speaking of One Piece, this was another film that was on my docket for the longest time. One Piece Film Z. I caught this film while, like, I was kind of surfing on YouTube, and they had, like, the entire movie out. So I basically wanted to see what it was like, and it seems like for a standalone film with not much continuity to the show, it was definitely really good. I just haven't really, like, watched it in years, but, like, obviously I want to, like, sit down and actually watch this movie. Okay, next we have is Despicable Me, and this is only the first movie, because I definitely like the movie for what it is. I think I remember catching it on TV once, and then because I actually found myself enjoying it a lot, and obviously part of it was because of the Minions, that I really wanted to have it in my collection, and as you can see, I now have it. Alright, so next we have Ice Age, and then Ice Age Meltdown. So the first Ice Age movie, I remember watching a lot. Like, I think one of my babysitters had it on DVD, and I found myself to be watching it over and over and over again. And, like, whenever it was on TV, it was, like, always on whenever I was in elementary school. And then Meltdown was actually the one movie that I actually wanted to see in theaters, and it kind of terrified me, especially with those, like, freaky as hell fish. So that's definitely something to think about. But I definitely liked both of these movies. But to be honest, I kind of fell out of the series after the second movie, because it's like, I think I wanted to see the third movie, but then I just never got around to it. And then by the time 4 or 5 came out, it felt like the film just jumped the shark. Alright, and then the last DVD I have in my collection at the time, there might be more and I just can't see them. Basically, last we have Over the Hedge, one of the most forgotten in DreamWorks movies ever made, and to be honest, it's kind of an underrated classic, because I literally thought this movie a lot. Oh yeah, and this is one of those DVD cases where it's like, it has like one of those like extra clips in to like hold the case still, even though it's not necessary, even though like the case can open and shut just fine. But yeah, very underrated DreamWorks movie, and I hopefully think people give it another chance. Okay, so that's pretty much it for every single movie I have on DVD, and now I just gotta cobble these 2 videos together and hopefully get this up on YouTube to hold you guys over, because I will be going down to Rhode Island by not this upcoming week, but next Wednesday, where hopefully I can get my laptop back in order and actually finally get back into a kind of a recording and uploading schedule. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.